Hey, so yesterday, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops on Veterans Day gave our country a great gift. They announced that on our country's 250th birthday, they will consecrate the nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. If you're not familiar with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, they're an organization of United States bishops. They meet twice a year and they decide what the priorities are for our country, for the Catholic Americans, pretty much in general. They also elected a new president, Archbishop Paul Coakley from Oklahoma. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him in a moment, but I want to circle back to how awesome this is that they're going to consecrate the nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, I believe on July 4th. They said in July. Actually, let me see. They might have said June, right? Let me see, because July 4th is when we celebrate it. I'm sorry. I'm looking at this. They're going to do it in 2026, either the end of June or July 24th. It might be when they meet, but they're going to do it in 2026 during our 250th birthday. So why is it so important? Because the United States, even though right now it's not popular to say this on YouTube, is the greatest nation known to man. We are the freest. In many countries, Muslims will behead you if you are just a Christian. In communist countries, they will imprison you and kill you. In socialist countries, they will harass and kill you. Not only in the United States do we have the freedom to worship Jesus, God has blessed this country to be the wealthiest. We have the money to send missionaries to places. So God uses America to spread the gospel. And like I said, a lot of people, bash America these days. It's always come from the left, but more, now people have their own YouTube channels. You get to see how they really believe. And these guys on TV we thought were conservative or just repeating liberal propaganda and bashing America and our allies. And some of these guys are Catholic, and ironically, they're the same guys that bash our Pope. It's what I call the Judas syndrome, or if you're familiar with The Godfather, the Fredo syndrome. And that Fredo syndrome, I noticed that when I came back to the Catholic Church, that a lot of Catholic YouTubers were spouting Protestant lies about the church and the Pope, and like day in and day out just bashing Pope Francis and now Pope Leo, before that Pope Benedict. But they were also bashing the USCCB and and our bishops. I remember having, before I was exposed to Bishop Barron, I would hear all these people call him like a liberal. I'm like, what are you talking about? When I see him, I'm like, this guy's a liberal. And I actually made a video where he said the rosary in front of a statue of Saint Sarah that Antifa and Black Lives Matter came to tear down, and they were going to deface the church, and it was going to be a big riot. And I actually made a video about that, and people were shocked. Even Taylor Marshall was shocked, because he was one of them bashing Bishop Barron every day at the time. This is years ago. So like Trump's first term, that first summer where all the liberals went crazy and just started destroying churches and government buildings, if you remember, what the left-wing media called peaceful protests. But I want to get to, but anyway, so at the time I looked in the USCCB, and they said the most important thing in American politics when we vote is abortion. Abortion, like Pope Francis said, is the gravest of mortal sins. And I remember the president at that time, I believe his name was Archbishop Jose, I think I wrote it down because I knew it, Gomez. He was pushing for them to vote not to give the Eucharist to politicians who were pro-abortion, and then I guess they didn't take it across the board. They didn't want to do that across the board because they don't want to seem too political. But when Bishop Corleone, who is part of the USCCB, wrote a letter to Pope Francis and said, Nancy Pelosi is just, she's just like the most pro-abortion radical that you could possibly be. What should I do? He said, follow the letter that then Cardinal Ratzinger wrote about this issue, who later became Pope Benedict. And it said you should try and pastor them, get them to repent. But if it comes to a point where they won't repent, then you need to ban them from getting the Eucharist. And so when the ban goes in effect, they're not allowed to receive a Eucharist in their diocese. It's up to the bishops and the priests to look out. But once they leave the diocese, it's up to that person. And so a lot of people got mad because she went to the Vatican and some priest who probably didn't even know her gave her the Eucharist. I'm like, oh, she's banned. Well, that was on her. A lot of people go to the Vatican who probably shouldn't take the Eucharist and go for the Eucharist. But so I'm like, if they voted for this Archbishop Gomez and he's conservative, they can't be liberal, right? And then the next president they voted for was Archbishop Timothy Broglio, who was and is the Archbishop for my daughter and her husband. He's the military Archbishop too. People have other things they do besides the USCCB. And I know he was conservative because I met him. Like, if you don't remember, I'll remind you. His first month at USCCB, he met two people. He interviewed with two people. The first was Pope Francis. The second was yours truly. Don't ask me how that happened, but by the grace of God, I just called the office and he agreed to an interview with me. They said he's actually in Rome meeting with the Pope right now, but when he gets back, he agrees to meet with you. And he was very conservative. We talked about we talked mostly about the military. And he said when Obama put an order that all the military chaplains have to conduct gay marriages, he told Obama to his face, my priest will not conduct a gay marriage. My priest will not bless the same-sex unions. And my priest will not even give counseling to gay couples. And he said he had the full support of Pope Francis. And on every other issue, abortion, even I had a friend at the time who loved the Latin Mass, told me, ask him about the Latin Mass. And so I said, do you allow the Latin Mass in the military? And he says, absolutely. He said, but, we're short-handed priests, as you can imagine, because not only is the Catholic Church short-handed priests, but you have to have a priest that passes military standards, age-wise, and they got to pass the physical fitness, I have a couple priests that agreed to come on that are military chaplains and they're airborne. They're paratrooper priests. I mean, it's not easy, Plus, they have to do all their duties as a priest and they work within the unit. They got to do their, keep their airborne status. They got to jump, I think, every 30 days to keep that status as airborne. So it's not easy. He said, so if there's a priest that can provide the Latin Mass, absolutely. We don't restrict it in the military. So I'm like, this guy's not, and I talked off the air, very conservative. I'm like, why do these Catholic YouTubers make our Protestant friends think that the Catholic Church is woke? Why would they do that, And then, so we're going to get back to this one, this new president. I always tell you, I read everything. That's primarily where I get my news, from reading. Because when people talk, they can, when you read, you can really be more critical thinking, I believe. So what I find. So I read the left-wing newspapers online. I read the right-wing. I read everything I can find. And when you go to a left-wing paper and they're upset of the new bishop, you realize, yep, he's a good bishop. They were upset with Archbishop Timothy Broglio as well. So I went to this liberal news site, and this is their headline. Come on. This is The Guardian. It says, U.S. Catholic bishops elect conservative president, doubling down on the right word lean. President Paul Coakley of Oklahoma seen as cultural warrior, but likely to endorse push for more humane treatment of immigrants. So that's how they see it, because he, just like his predecessors, he's a strong pro-life advocate. Just like his predecessors, he's a strong traditional advocate. It's funny when my Protestant friends accuse us of being woke, and I show them what these popes and bishops and priests actually teach. Like, wow, you guys are the most conservative church out there. But, you know, everybody has agenda. There's people that claim to be Catholic and claim to be conservative, have their agenda to attack our church. And then, of course, the left, you know, hates the values of their church because we're pro-traditional marriage. We teach still today that homosexual acts are sinful and disordered. We teach marriages between one man and one woman. We teach abortion is the gravest immortal sin, as Pope Francis said on numerous occasions. We teach transgenderism is demonic, as Pope Francis has said on several occasions. But they like to divide us, you know. Division is diabolical. Jesus prayed for unity. That's why he became Catholic, because he wants us to be one holy Catholic Apostolic Church. So when there's division, you see how through the years, Satan used men in the church. Martin Luther, the old Catholic, it was that guy named Dollinger who rejected Vatican I, the guys that rejected Vatican II, Calvin. Satan loves to divide the church. So he uses the left and the right to get Catholics confused. But Archbishop Timothy Broglio, who I loved, and maybe I can get him on again because now he has less responsibilities, because I really wanted to discuss the military situation. We have an issue with the military contracts from the government and the chaplain shortage. But and Lord willing, I'll get Archbishop Paul Coakley on too and ask him some questions. But they like to divide us. But I'm gonna just read a little bit of well, no, I'm not going to read that. I'm going to read something else because I'm looking at the time and I got to get to work. But he's strong pro-life. I mean, and all the bishops in the USCCB agree on all these issues. What the left and, again, some on the right try to highlight is what they emphasize. You know, like an MMA fighter knows you got to have wrestling, you got to have jiu-jitsu, you got to have boxing, you got to have kickboxing. But some will focus more on the stand-up boxing and kickboxing. Some will focus more on the grappling, wrestle, and jiu-jitsu. Some bishops focus more on immigration. Some bishops focus more on abortion. I believe this bishop is going to focus on the primary concern of what the USCCB has consistently said, the most important topic in America: abortion. We need to end abortion. It's a genocide. It's a Holocaust. It's evil. You know, no longer can the left say it's not a baby, unless they are complete science deniers, which they seem to be, because they think a man can have babies. Like, they literally say that, and they'll like ban you from YouTube if you're big enough. I'm not big enough; they're not gonna ban me. But if you're big enough and you say men cannot have babies, so the left is crazy. But now there was one issue that those, you know, on the right might use to say, haha, see? And they say he supported Archbishop Viganò. Well, I'm going to read what he said, and it doesn't seem like support to me. So this is all he did, and this is why they say Archbishop Coakley supported Archbishop, excommunicated Carlo Maria Viganò, rather. He's not an archbishop anymore. He's not even Catholic. He's excommunicated. The August 22nd release of the 11-page testimony of Archbishop Carlo Maria Viganò, the former apostolic nuncio to the United States, has sent shockwaves throughout the Catholic Church, and it did. This document merits indeed It demands deeper examination. Like so many, I am deeply troubled by the assertions contained. While I lack any personal knowledge or experience of the details contained in his testimony, I have the deepest respect for Viganò and his personal integrity. He claims yet to be investigated or substantiated, confirm the urgency of a thorough investigation of Archbishop McCarrick's advancement throughout the ranks. It's a very dark moment in the history of our church. We are called to prayer and penance. I'm encouraged in finding consolation as I reflect on the Lord's promise to Peter that the gates of hell will not prevail. Please pray for all victims of abuse, especially those harmed by members of the clergy. May God deliver us from this deadly scourge. Please pray for me and all our priests. So he wasn't saying he agrees with him. He's saying his assertions, from what I know about this guy, I think he's credible. You know, he has integrity. So we need to investigate his claims. But that was 2018, right before the report, right before the official report from many good Catholic bishops who investigated the McCarrick scandal. And what they found out is Archbishop Viganò was covering up for McCarrick. There's pictures of him partying with this guy. They were buddies. I don't know how close they were, but they look close. Traveling the world, hitting champagne. He lied to Pope Benedict. We know this. In the 2018, Michael Lofton did a beautiful job reading verse by verse that page report. So it's a long video, but it's worth watching if you still think Viganò's a good guy. And after that, I didn't hear Archbishop Coakley support Viganò anymore. And as far as his credibility, well, not only do we know he's a liar, he lied about Pope Francis, said he had credible evidence he was going to bring forth that Pope Francis abused little kids. And we found out that was totally made up, pulled out of his butt. Not only that, but his own brother, who's a priest, a holy priest, had to go to court because Viganò robbed him of $2 million. Like $2 million. Yeah, Viganò's filthy rich. His net worth is like $30 million. He's like a trust fund baby and heard a ton of money. And under oath, his brother said Viganò stole $2 million from him and lied to Pope Benedict. Told Pope Benedict, he was lying to Benedict all the time, but this was in court. He said, he lied to Pope Benedict and said, I was disabled. He had to stay in Rome to take care of me. He said, I was doing fine. I was living in Chicago. He wanted to stay in Rome because he was embezzling money out of my bank account. He was ripping me off. He was found guilty and had to repay that $2 million. His sister had the same testimony in a different court in a different country. I believe it was Switzerland or Sweden. I always get those two confused. But his sister, Viganò's sister, said he ripped her off $300,000 and he was ordered to pay her back. So the guy's a liar and a thief, this Viganò. And it's funny that he covered for McCarrick. It's not funny. It's predictable. Again, watch Michael Lofton's video on this. It's clear. He was the one. And before it came out, it was like the guy in the Warriors when the gang was caught the guys who really killed their leader. And the guy's like a little weasel. No, it wasn't me. It was the Warriors. The Warriors did it. That's Viganò, a little weasel pointing at the Vicar of Christ, accusing the Vicar of Christ of what he did. In fact, Pope Francis laicized McCarrick, for the record. And then Viganò, after he's excommunicated and he's no longer Catholic, where does he run to? He runs to the SSPX resistance, where their leader, Bishop Williamson, was thrown out of the SSPX. I mean, you know, for heresy. So you know you're bad when you're thrown out of the SSPX for heresy. That's like getting thrown out of the KKK for racism. But Bishop Williamson, a lot of people don't realize this, when Marcel Lefebvre was alive, they had a friend. His name was Father Eric Urigotti. And all the priests, all the seminarians came to, because Lefebvre ordained this guy a bishop and then a priest. And then Williamson appointed him to lead the school of little children. A bunch of credible seminarians and lay people that worked in the school that they were involved in came to Marcel Lefebvre and Bishop Williamson and said, this guy is a pedophile. You can't ordain him. But they ordained him anyway. They ordained their friend anyway. And Bishop Williamson protected him until finally SSPX realized how bad this guy, and they threw him out, and he went to one of these resistance cults. So now Viganò is in this resistance cult called the SSPX Resistance, a group of sedevacantist heretics. They don't believe there's been a pope since 1958. They don't believe me and you are Catholic. So they rebaptized Catholics, which is a mortal sin, and they reordained they reordained Carlo Maria Viganò as a bishop. So this is the group he's running with. And not only that, a couple priests that were thrown out of the SSPX for pedophilia and were under investigation went to this cult, and they were caught in France being hidden. So he's in a cult that's hiding pedophiles, and he's claiming Pope Francis hit a pedophile, or well, homosexual. All these pedophiles I'm talking about are homosexual pedophiles. Okay, so anyway, so when they say, oh yeah, he supports Viganò, no. He supported looking into what Viganò said about McCarrick in 2018. But since then, Viganò has been discredited, disgraced, and excommunicated. So if anybody's telling you to listen to Viganò today, don't listen to them. You may as well listen to Martin Luther and John Calvin. They're all excommunicated heretics. So anyway, I think this is exciting. I think we got another good conservative archbishop. Lord willing, pray for me. I'll see if I can get him on. I'll ask him some questions. If you got any questions, put them in a comment and I'll write them down. And stay Catholic.